Part 3? You're still here? Okay. This is 3.
Now we get to a show that I am actually watching at the moment. It is Monty Python's Flying Circus. I've seen 2 of the Monty Python ones. One I thought was, like the movies, one I thought was and then one I thought was pretty good. But as for the show, a lot of it is, for the most part, a home run. These sketches are so nonsensical. I think the acting really brings a whole new layer as to what these sketches are capable of, because these people are committed as fuck to stay serious. When it immediately cuts to them, or whether they're dressed as a woman or something, it does not feel like the same person. It always feels as if we're meeting someone new. It definitely fits into my type of humor, because anyone who knows me knows that I like to just think of things in my head. I'm just like, hey, imagine like you're just taking a shit and like the toilet breaks while you're taking a shit. That's just what goes through my head, and that is a lot of what the humor is. It's kind of like a what if thing. And like Robot Chicken, which definitely does a lot of that in terms of like pop culture stuff, we'll get to that. But in terms of Monty Python, it's like, what if a courtroom just uses charades? There you go, there's your sketch. It's just a simple question, a simple idea, and they run with it. It is a lot of fun, and I really want to check out all of the other movies, and I'm so excited. So next one. Believe it or not, Robot Chicken was one of the first shows I saw as a kid. Like when I was 9, I saw Robot Chicken, and compared to something like The Simpsons, it's quite staggering, the difference. A lot of these sketches, and it is a lot like Monty Python with a lot of the what if scenarios, but it's definitely more of like a pop cultural sort of thing. Some of these sketches are so dark and so disturbing, you kind of just have to embrace it. It's just a blender of just madness and nonsense. It's like, you are the person, you are the chicken, the robot chicken strapped to the chair, forced to watch just this madness unfold. And it's fucking hilarious. The amount of what if ideas in here. What if the girl with the dragon tattoo paired up with Scooby-Doo? What if the people in Fast and the Furious were driving little kitty cars? It just cracks me up, and the animation is so charming, is so lively. The voices are just so friggin' out there, and they sometimes get the actual stars. I think Macaulay Culkin's been on them and stuff like that. The problem with that is like when I saw like the trailer for the second Lego movie, I'm like, okay, this main character just sounds like Seth Green. I'm like, okay, well, we're doing the Robot Chicken thing of just addressing cliches, but now it's like they're just ripping off the voicing style. I'm like, ugh. But no, the pain, the misery, and the what the fuckery is just top notch in this show. But the problem is I've seen seasons 1 to 6. I still need to see some of them. They take established shows and you can tell they're fans of it, or at least they have a knowledge of these stories to such a degree that it does not feel heartless in a way. It's kind of hard to explain. It's just that they know what was liked about the show, or at least they know why it was popular, and they address them, and they sort of poke fun at it, and they make fun. They create just these violent, grotesque creations, and it's a blast. It is so much fun. It is hilarious, and it can be disturbing as fuck, and it's like when people are really hurt, it really feels like it hurts. I mean, that sketch, I think the most brutal one is that when the guy turns into a car and he's brought to like the scrapyard. Oh, that's so fucked up. Oh, but you kind of have to expect it with a show like this. It's just like, you're gonna turn on, you don't know what you're gonna get. It's just, here is some crazy shit. We don't care if it's all funny, but this is what we have, and that is the way it feels authentic, and that's the way the show is always felt. We have the late 60s British series of Sherlock Holmes with Douglas Wilmer as Sherlock this time. I was going to check this out because I couldn't get a hand on the earlier Sherlock adaptations, so I wanted to check this out. I wanted to see something that just was, you know, the classic Sherlock Holmes, not the updated one, because a lot of things are going to be changed. So I took a look at this. the Douglas Wilmer is really good. In fact, all of the acting is surprisingly really freaking good for something like this. It looked like it was kind of a low budget miniseries. When we go through all of these mysteries, a lot of it is not that interesting. A lot of it is just kind of waiting for it to end. So hopefully the next episode will give you something better. And there are times you really feel the relationship with Watson and Holmes, but they're very far and in between, and some of the shots can be kind of clever, but the acting is the best thing going for this show. It's definitely not the writing, it's not the story. Hopefully the Basil Rathbone one or the Cumberbatch one is better, but as for this one, it's just kind of eh. Walking Dead, okay, I will try to keep this short. By Walking Dead, I have seen seasons 1 to 7. What sense does that make? What does that mean? It was, I think it was 2014. Yeah, it was in the spring of 2014 where I was like, I really want summer to start because I think that'll be the perfect time to sit down and watch this. And it really was. It's like the Beach Boys of fucking TV shows. It's like when you watch it, you immediately think of summer and you think of just blazing hot weather. Now at that time, there were 4 seasons out and season 5 was gonna be out in the coming fall. So I got all 4 seasons on Blu-ray and I was really excited. So I sat down and watched them. I was never the same. This to me is one of my favorite shows, might be my favorite show. And I will stress it, the first 4 seasons are my favorite. Now, why is that? Well, I think the biggest problem this show tends to have is when they introduce way too many people and too many locations, they Game of Thrones it. By season 6, there's way too many people. It doesn't have the same mood. It doesn't have the same atmosphere. And I find they use scores a lot more in those seasons. Because in season 1, 2, 3, and especially 4, it is extremely quiet. It just lets the atmosphere build. And I just adore that. I loved it. I loved it, loved it, loved it. And these characters are just so phenomenal. When they have to explain something, it never feels like we are going through our arc. It always feels like they needed to explain that or they needed to say something. And every single person, you feel like you've known that person. Was this person, would you be able to figure out in daily life if they could have survived before the apocalypse? Would you have guessed that Carol at the beginning of the apocalypse would be able to survive? And you see how these tragedies, these ridiculously heartbreaking tragedies, either make it or break it for people, whether they can evolve or it'll just destroy them. And you see that certain characters, it will depend. And that's what is so ingenious about this writing, is that these characters are so different and they're going to react to certain situations in their own unique way. Now, when people are talking about when Game of Thrones kills off so many characters and you can't get attached or feel, I'm like, like there's a show happening at the exact same time that does the exact same thing, right? Like this show, they don't hold back in who they're gonna fucking kill. It happens too many times and I feel bad when anybody dies in this show. I just feel awful. I don't think it has gotten as good as seasons 1 to 4. I mean, Negan to me is a little bit of an overrated villain. I mean, he has the intimidation down, but he has some funny lines, man. I mean, he's too charismatic, he's too likable. I don't want that out of my villain for what this villain does and things he puts these characters through. I'm like, I should not like this guy. I should not be like, oh, why don't I have a beer with that guy? That'll be a lot of fun. It's like, no, give me the governor who is just the epitome of just fucked up humanity, who's just had a fucked up past and a fucked up future and makes all these power hungry decisions. You don't want to be around this guy. You just don't. So I don't know where the show is right now. I've heard they made a very big decision in season 8, I believe, or season 9. I don't know if I'm going to continue it because it's been such a long time since I've watched it. And I am one of those people that I don't like to watch a show while it's still running. For me to wait a year for the next season, I get a disconnect. And that's just not how I want to experience a show. I want to be totally involved in it throughout the whole thing. It's like reading half a book and then you know, you wait another year and then you're like, oh, I'll just pick this up again. It's like, it doesn't make sense to me. It's got to be a whole. A season is a whole, but a show is a whole. I can't say enough good things about it. It has influenced my way of storytelling to an endless degree, just like Batman, just like Harley Quinn. You know, Shane is one of my favorite characters ever, not in terms of, you know, people that you idolize, but in terms of just characters. Like, that's like one of the great characters. There you have it. Now we get to the last one, and this one is kind of a funny one because it's YuGiOh. And it's weird for a couple things. First one is we're watching the American version, and I usually hate doing that. I despise the idea of dubbing something. I despise the idea of remaking a foreign movie 2 years later into an American one. I just think that is just so insulting. I hate talking like this, but for me to relive and rewatch something I watched when I was a kid, because I mean, I'm still a guppy. I'm still in my days. When people say like, I was back in my day, we had this and this, it's like, I'm still in my heyday, man. But then again, it was one of the first shows I really got into, so, and it was the American version I watched. And the thing is that a lot of things do change. Supposedly the Japanese one is a lot darker. I'd say there's still a lot of stuff in this show that is kind of uncomfortable to watch, especially stuff concerning the shadow realm and when people get sort of brainwashed or, you know, their minds are not there. It's upsetting, but I think we gotta address that this is one of the stupidest ideas ever. Just that guy's hair can't exist. It just, then this card game is just so off the rails. It's the most anime of anime card games. It makes Pokemon look as real as Schindler's List. But besides that, when you get into these duels, I am surprisingly, watching this show, I'm surprisingly going, how the hell are they gonna get out of this? And it's just perplexing to even have that thought in my head that I'm getting this invested in this stupid idea. But for some reason, I am. I surprisingly was able to get through the heart of the cards thing. As ridiculous as that sounds, I surprisingly can buy it a little bit. It got to the point where I felt like it was kind of like a religious thing, like a faith thing, kind of like Jedi is in the Star Wars movies. Maybe a little bit of that, but it's just called the heart of the cards. I'm not really sure. But the thing about this show is, again, I had never seen the Japanese one. For something, again, this stupid and silly, they really try with the characters. Joey Wheeler is right up there with Sam Gamgee in characters that are so supportive and loyal and will never stop. And they have this incredible drive and they have this incredible conviction where they will never stop. And the thing that means most to them is friendship and loyalty and just doing what is right. And if someone's going to oppress other people, they're going to stand up and say no. Seto Kaiba, surprisingly, is a super interesting character to watch. He is one of the most stubborn characters you'll ever see. So hellbent on winning, so hellbent on his reputation rather than loyalty and honor. And it feels with such weight whenever he loses, you really end up almost feeling for him, even though he is one of those characters that kind of goes back and forth between, is he a good guy, is he trustworthy, is he not? For the most part, he goes through things in a way that is always for his benefit. And when someone is in deep trouble, he will go after them and he will go save them, but only if it's in his best interest, if he gets something out of it. And just watching the stubbornness is a lot of fun. Even Yugi, surprisingly, that voice, the guy who plays Atem, that is one of the greatest voices of fucking all time. I don't care if it's an English dub. That is one of the greatest voices I've ever fucking heard. To hear that come out of the dude's mouth in like interviews, I'm just like, whoa, that just gives me chills. And when certain characters make these decisions, when they're under that mind control with, say, with like the seal of Orichalcos, when that character makes that decision, it is so devastating. And I'm so surprised that friggin' YuGiOh can do that. Like, it has the ability to do that. I'm just amazed. So that's about it. Those are all the shows I've seen. I might do a review of another show that I'm watching because I might have more to say about it. Stay tuned for that when I finish that up. So thank you so much for watching. Hope you loved it. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Who are we? And who are you? I'll see you next time.